Sorry. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us today. I know some of you are here on campus, sitting in on classes. And then, yeah, for anyone that is joining us virtually, also welcome to our open house event series of info sessions. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, yes. So hello from the narrative writing concentration. Elena Konis, who is pictured here, is the head of the track. She is currently acting dean, so she's very, very busy, and so she is not here today. But Jennifer Kahn has thankfully, we're fortunate to have her, and so she will be speaking to the track and answering any questions that you have about the concentration. Lisa as well, maybe you both can introduce yourselves. Lisa as well is a current student in her second year, but she can speak a little more to her own experience in the concentration as well.
Okay, can people hear me now? Great. Okay, so I am Jen Kahn. I have been teaching at the school for maybe, oh God, 15 years, a while. I used to actually lead the narrative track before I swapped over to Elena. Before I got to the school, I was just a pure freelancer, magazine writer. I was a contributing writer for Wired. I wrote for National Geographic. I wrote for The New Yorker. I'm now a contributing writer for the New York Times Magazine, so I continue to write for them. And I also sometimes do contract editing for magazines. And then, of course, I teach at the school. So that's basically me. Do you want to introduce yourself before we keep going?
Hi, my name is Lisa Plackey. I use she, her pronouns. And as Nellie said, I'm a second year student, narrative track. I came to the J School having done 10 years in advertising and marketing. So I came here of a career pivot. I'd always been a writer, and so wanted to find a different way to apply my writing skills. I'm currently in one of Jen's classes, so that's what we were talking about before. We're in draft season. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about being in the track or even the applying for schools. I was just sharing with other students why I came to Berkeley specifically.
Great. So I just have a very kind of general PowerPoint, and then we're really going to make this mostly interactive and have your questions answered. So again, who are we? And if you've joined other info sessions, this PowerPoint is very similar. But just, yeah, obviously, we're made up of people that are very passionate about supporting and inspiring the next generation of journalists. Who are you? I typically ask in the chat where people are coming from, because we here at the J School really do care about diversity, and diversity can be in the range of life experiences. We have career pivoters. We have people that have journalism experience and come back to us a few decades later wanting to so it's a wide range. We have students that come directly from undergrad with a journalism background or no journalistic storytelling experience. So we do really have a wide range of, and geographically across the states, we do have a lot of California students, as we are based here. We are a UC school, public university, but we of course have students from across the states. So yeah, would love to hear kind of where you all are coming from. And yeah, in the chat, feel free as well to kind of put where you all are listening into this webinar. Okay, so we said here, Phoenix.
I'm originally from China, and I'm here for one semester's exchange.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Which school or
Here, like I'm exchanging here, but I'm from China.
Awesome.
I'm from Berkeley, and I actually work in a lab here.
Oh, cool. Great.
I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Wow.
I'm from Phoenix, Arizona.
I was living in Sonoma County for 7 years, but now I'm in Southern California in Long Beach.
Long Beach as well.
Originally from Peru, but I grew up in the Bay Area.
I'm coming from Oakland, and I'm from the Bay Area.
I come from here in Berkeley.
I've spent the last while in the Sierra Nevada and just recently moved back to Berkeley.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know there's a lot more in the chat as well, but thank you all for joining from wherever part of the world or the content you're coming from. So just to keep going, really brief agenda. As I said, we did welcomes and introductions, just talking really generally about the concentration, but again, you can have more specific questions as we have experts here. And then just talking about next steps, kind of how you can stay in touch with us. I don't know if there's anything you want to speak to in terms of the mission. If you don't have a strong, then we can keep going. Or even as as a current student, kind of do, Lisa, if you feel, what our mission is. But this is our mission statement, which is to expand the worldwide impact of truth-seeking, fact-based, and inclusive journalism by training the next generation of diverse journalists to become exceptional storytellers and industry leaders. So.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Let's do that.
And so why Berkeley? This maybe you both can speak to. I obviously have a PowerPoint but I would love to hear from your experience, why you chose Berkeley journalism, and the same for you. You could be teaching anywhere, and so kind of, what brought you here, what is helping you stay here.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just start and say, so the narrative program, I'm assuming that's really why folks are here, so I want to talk kind of specifically about the narrative program. Narrative journalism, like much of journalism, is a little fucked at the moment. But one of the big goals of the narrative program is to make it more likely that you can actually, two things, I guess. One is that you can develop all kinds of baseline skills in narrative writing that you can bring to a huge range of jobs. And storytelling is a fairly universal skill. Especially kind of in-depth, complex storytelling is going to be increasingly needed, even if you end up going a more commercial route. But if you actually have the dream of writing books or writing for magazines or whatever else, it's especially crucial. And one of the things that's very, very hard, like all the time I would see it, I would go, I'd be presenting at these mid-career conferences. And so people who were like in their, mid-30s or whatever they were, they'd say, man, I've been writing all these like news pieces and all these maybe even short pieces for magazines, and I just can't get anyone to let me publish like a big, beautiful feature like I've been wanting to do. And the second I look at their pitch, I know exactly why. And so to me, the thing I really want people to learn is that I don't want you to exit here and then slam your head right into that same ceiling. So like regardless of whether you leave and immediately want to go write for the New Yorker, or whether you go into audio or you go into news or whatever it is, I want you to, at a profound level, understand both narrative drivers and structure and the art of pitching and everything else, so that when you actually get out there, you have that capacity to bring to whatever you want. So I'm just going to pause there for a minute and say for you.
I have kind of two answers to this question. Part of why I joined Berkeley before, and what was attractive to me in the program was having 2 years to kind of figure out what I would do with this career pivot. I knew that I was a writer. I know that journalism was hard. So I felt like, okay, they're going to give me 2 years to figure this out, to explore other skills, and I'm going to be surrounded by professionals and have that network. I was more attracted to Berkeley's 2-year as a sort of indecisive person. We have an investigative journalism program that you don't have to commit to be part of. Other schools, you have to know, I'm an investigative journalist. And I'm like, I don't really know if I'm an investigative journalist. I barely know that I'm a journalist. And then kind of going back to the mission, I was really attracted to the fact that the people that were showing up to info sessions were really from all over the place. And I felt like, wow, this is really like, it's just worldly. Like there's a different layer of education that I'm getting at Berkeley than I would have gotten at Northwestern in the Midwest. So then I did ultimately choose Berkeley. And what I'm finding out are a couple of things that I would encourage people to consider of reasons to come here. One, if you can't tell, Jen is an incredible writer and editor, and I am getting a writing education that I tried to get in undergrad as a creative writing minor and never got. I would be in classes where we would just workshop each other's work, but we wouldn't break down structure, character, quotes, scene, detail to the level that I've experienced here. And I didn't fully know that coming in, but if I take anything away from this program, is like I know what makes something really, really, really good, and hopefully I will get closer to being able to achieve that. And the other thing is, I came in not fully knowing where my life was going to take me, and I signed up for Jen's How to Be an Editor class, which focused not just on the craft of editing, but the career of editing. And that's actually opened up like an entirely different career path for me that I never would have considered had I don't know, maybe gone to a place that didn't offer a class like that. So I'm able to reflect on like, I'm glad I chose here because look at all these things that have happened.
Anything else that you want to add? And again, I just switched slides, but exactly speaking to the 2-year duration and being able to build a comprehensive portfolio of published work through classes. For example, let's say taking a class with Jennifer Kahn, or this summer also with the internships. We do require a 300 hour internship, which a majority of our students take during the summer between year 1 and 2. And so, yeah, again, just really ensuring that you're leveraging that 2 years. And I always say that when I speak to current students or alums, I've never had a student say, I wish it was shorter. I feel like the opposite when I speak to people that do a 1 year or a 10-month, usually it's like, oh gosh, I'm squeezing so much in. I never, even with a 2-year duration, I never hear students say, they say it goes so fast. So I guess the point is really, I think the fact that we are one of the few Master of Journalism programs out there that offer a 2-year, and that, you have the time to really focus on that second year on a master's project, is what I hear, what draws a lot of students. Yeah.
And actually, one thing I can talk about a little is that master's project. So there are, as you know, there are tracks at the school where you can be in audio, you can be in, video documentary. The narrative track is actually, it's a little misnamed in the sense of it could be one of 3 things. So you can do an investigative. And these I will say it's a Venn diagram. They can overlap. But so one option is the investigative program. Another is this sort of portfolio program. And so what you do then is you do like deeply reported, but newsier, shorter pieces, right? And so then what you end up submitting as your final master's project is a combined set of pieces that you have reported and written. And I think they have some sort of like word length for whatever those have to total, but I'm not sure anyone actually cares. And then the final track, or the final sub-track within the track, is narrative. And that's if you really want to do a deeply reported, long-form piece, in the kind of more classic magazine style, though, of course, it can be like online or print or whatever, kind of place you want to write for. And so that's what I have traditionally advised on myself. But these are all tracks are open to you, and you can choose the one that either feels the most savvy for getting a job, or you can treat it as like, this is my chance to stretch and grow, and I really like, when else am I going to get to do this and get all the editing support? It's actually very, like, that's one of the things that's very hard about breaking into this business. When I was talking about that ceiling before, is that if you send off pitches or send off drafts, if they're not working, people they just say, no, thank you, right? You don't really get this, thing where it's just, draft after draft of the pitch. Like Lisa and I worked on her pitch I gotta say, she just handed in the best draft. Honestly, I was
delighted.
Like,
I can graduate. Gen Con liked my pitch. Like, I'm done. That's all I need.
Dude, but it was so great. The pitch was fantastic, and now her draft is fantastic. But it took
a year.
Right, it took a while. So it took a while of of working and revising, but that's the kind of, I feel like that kind of hands-on thing is what's really hard to get in the outside world these days. Because I regularly have to justify to myself why I stay here teaching in narrative. If you guys could just go out and get this, working for a magazine, is this just a pyramid scheme that I'm running here, right? So I don't want it to be that, and so I want to make sure that I'm strongly justified in doing this. But really quickly to return to, so that those are the 3 sub-tracks. They do sometimes overlap. So I have worked with people who started in investigative, for instance, and then discovered that their piece really, it just lent itself to a character-driven story more than to a FOIA-heavy, we have an anecdote at the top, and then we have just a fuck ton of information, then we have a short anecdote at the bottom, newspaper blockbuster. That's in general how it goes. And so, if you start in one, there is some room to, move, or if you're, you start in a big narrative thing and you think, what, this is hard. I actually have 3 pieces I've already done. I just want to switch to the portfolio. So there is a fair amount of flexibility. But I will just say for anyone, if it helps, coming in with intention is really useful. So coming in and kind of knowing what you not necessarily even what you want to do, but kind of what you want to get out of the school can be really useful. So I'll just stop there and see if you have anything
Plus to that,
yeah.
Even though I said I had no idea, but I think so many people will tell you will get out of this school what you want or what you go after. And so coming in, I sort of knew magazine-y was the world that I wanted to be, but I'm going to do the 3-piece portfolio. I like maybe sort of wanted to write a magnum opus of like a long form narrative, and instead I'm choosing to use my portfolio 3 pieces to explore personal essays is one of those. And I'm like, oh, I've always wanted to do this, and I have this incredible guidance. So there's a lot of flexibility, which is good for peeps like me.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I actually just put up a slide that also kind of speaks to all the points you're making, and just so they have a sense of what that curriculum looks like, the different available specializations or concentrations or tracks. I kind of use all those terms interchangeably, but essentially write a specialization in a media platform that is the format used for your master's project, essentially. So I think that's the flexibility that they're speaking to, which is that just because you're interested in narrative writing doesn't mean you can't take audio classes or take take an investigative reporting. Like, the point is, there is that flexibility with narrative writing where you can in that first year especially just explore and dabble and take classes and just have that time with, again, because we are a 2-year program. So you will need to declare that concentration, however, by the end of your first year. But yeah, you have that time. There's faculty here. Again, I just have it here for, reference, but if there's anything you want to speak to in terms of faculty, if not, again, these are just so you can see the range of our faculty. And this is not just narrative, right? But, Lisa Armstrong, like, there's, obviously other faculty that teach courses that fall under that narrative writing specialization. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. We have some great narrative faculty. I mostly want to make sure we have time for questions in case you guys have them. But Elena Canas has a fantastic historical and public health background, has written an entire book on vaccines and several other books that are really fascinating. And she's a wonderful teacher and teaches a class on health and science reporting usually in the spring. Lisa Armstrong came from Craig Newmark and in New York, and has taught for years and is fantastic also as a teacher, and I've heard just wonderful things about her. Of course, we have Mark Danner, and he was a MacArthur Genius Grant. Yeah, we have a lot of folks who are really fantastic, so I won't name them all, but.
Okay, yeah, so just a little bit, obviously, lectures, the investigative reporting program. There will also be a separate webinar on covering the investigative reporting program. So if that is something where you're interested in narrative and then also maybe investigative reporting, as they mentioned, I would recommend joining that. I do want to leave room for questions, and since we have 20 minutes, I may just leave the rest of it up to you all, and I'm going to check the chat and make sure that we're getting kind of most questions answered, but we can start with the people that are here. I'll also pass this, make sure to speak into the speaker, so that way people in the webinar can also hear your question. Are there any questions firstly before I
can repeat it too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you guys for doing this. My name is Hamza. Nice to meet you. So my question is essentially it seems like there's all sorts of people that end up going to the J School, from people who have just graduated from a 4-year to I've talked to people who seem to have 5 to 10 years of experience, and they're now honing down on what they want to do and perfect their craft. I don't know how to say it. But what would you say, especially for narrative writing? I think a lot of us, are in college. We have some form of academic experience with writing. Some of us work in news as well. What would you say is this ideal for? Somebody who is straight out, who's trying to learn the fundamentals, or somebody who maybe gets to pick what they want to do now that they're getting, more mature?
Well, I'd be interested in Lisa's take on this, but I will just start by saying what's interesting is that when I came in, the J School was known as more of a mid-career program. It was aimed at people who'd been out working in the world for, say 5 years or something like that, and then were coming in to deepen their skills. And then increasingly over the years, we just saw that the applicants we were getting more and more folks who are coming straight out of college. And so now we do have this really good mix. And I'll say I actually think that's good. So personally, when I teach, and this is again something Lisa can speak to, but that class that I'm teaching now, it has a big range, right? And so that's part of why the hands-on individual editing is really helpful. And I always sort of give people options of sort of difficulty level of what they feel like tackling in that class. I mean, it's one thing to write a piece that's like, this could be a national story that you hope to place in Harper's, versus you can do a great, beautiful, story that runs in Bay Nature, one of the local publications around here. It covers environmental issues. And I had a student who did just a gorgeous piece for them, and now writes for the Sierra Club magazine and other places. So I guess I'll just say that at least I try to make the classes open because you have such a range. And I do think that having all those folks in the class, it makes it good, right? Because then you have people who have, some people have deeper experience, some people are newer. And so I actually find that really stimulating and good. So I think the school can meet you where you are. But, maybe I would just say that. So let's hear what Lisa says.
Yeah, I think I would think about what you're missing out of whatever you're doing now, and whether you think you can go out and get that on your own or want to get that on your own. Berkeley comes with the built-in Berkeley network, which doesn't just give you access to the professors who are teaching narrative writing, but the entire UC system. So as you're reporting, when you want an expert on something and you have that berkeley.edu email address, you get answers faster, right? So can you find that network on your own? Can you build that network on your own? Maybe, but this is definitely a shortcut. In terms of pursuing narrative, again, what are the things that you think you can't get on your own? Have you had a great editor in your life, or have you had really, really busy editors in your life? Are you trying to become more of a certain style of writer, more into narrative or more into local or more national? And is it hard to access the people who can help you get there? We also have students who are coming from international backgrounds that have highly successful careers in other countries and just want to break into the US market. I mean, Meg is literally famous in Japan. And I'm always like, why are you here? And it's like, well, because the US, journalism in the US is very different than it is in Japan. And then part of, just as a personal anecdote, I also wanted to, on a smaller scale, have access to some of the things that I'm like, I really have no idea. So a couple of our students here were in my audio class today. I'm not an audio student, but I wanted to have someone teach me those skills without having to figure it out on my own, and have access to nice equipment. We have a great equipment closet. I'm taking a social media video class. Again, you can probably do all of that by yourself if you are super motivated. But when you're in an environment where you have access to not only professors, but students who are learning alongside you, that's what an education is about.
Any other questions for you?
Hi, so I'm interested in getting into science writing, and I know you do a lot of science reporting. So I was hoping you could speak to how the narrative track sort of incorporates science and also the advantages of that for science writing.
Are you looking at like Santa Cruz as an alternative or something? Yeah. Honestly, I mean, if what you want to do is like people are not going to be psyched. I was just like, don't go here. But I was going to say that if what you really want to do is just like hardcore science report, like if you want to write just sort of pretty technically stuff for, like the popular side of science or something like that journal, honestly, probably Santa Cruz is better because they've got a lot of that, right? Like that's what they focus on. I actually used to go down there and guest lecture, but it's a short program and they cover a lot of ground. And if you do want to do, I guess if you really kind of want to, get out of what I think of as kind of a little bit of like a, I don't know, there's kind of a neighborhood of like more technical science writing. If you want to reach a more general audience and do slightly more, bigger, more complex, more humane or character-driven pieces, you don't have quite as much time to practice that, is my sense down there, and there's a little bit less of a focus on it. So it really, I guess I just want to say that it depends on what you're interested in. So if it's the former, then, but Berkeley is great. Obviously, we have like a ton of, fantastic, fantastic research going on here to report on. For starters, there's actually publications on campus that, actually try to spotlight, sort of research that's going on that allow you to do good narrative. So it's a good place to kind of get, some practice in that, or Bay Nature or whatever else. But primarily, I think our strength would be that we really do focus more on the craft of like storytelling and writing and audio. And so if you feel confident on the science side, maybe that's what I would say.
Thank you. We do have some questions in the chat, so I might give them some space to, and then we'll come back to you though, so please keep. Okay, so Eloise, since you asked first, raise your hand. Eloise, do you want to unmute yourself? One
Yes,
second.
thank you.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for running this and giving those of us who can't be in Berkeley right now the chance to participate. I sort of had a question along similar lines, but opposite side of the spectrum. I'm just curious about like subject concentrations, because when I was looking into sort of the faculty in the J school, and specifically looking, geared towards the narrative track, it seems like there's a lot of expertise in business reporting and science and in the tech sector, which obviously is to be expected kind of locationally. But yeah, I'm curious if there's, room for people who have subject concentration interests sort of outside of those sectors, maybe in like arts and culture reporting and stuff like that.
That's going to be like, definitely not. So this is it's actually an endless subject of discussion among faculty here of how much to concentrate on subject stuff versus like skill stuff. So, I sort of teach a profiles class so that you can like concentrate on anything within that class. But these kind of topical areas, it kind of depends. Like, do we have someone who's really good this year, and do we have a lot of demand, whether it's for business or whether it's for arts and culture or whether it's for whatever else? So there is always room for that, and I think they are trying to make more room for arts and culture reporting, and certainly some of the guests we have into profiles specialize in that, so I think there's room for it. I guess the question is like, is there, within arts and culture, is there a sort of a topical thing that you're hoping for? Like, I keep wanting to look over at this screen, though I know you're not there. Like, do you actually want something very specific about, like, music criticism or something else? Because that is true that the J School in general doesn't kind of get that, I guess, micro, it doesn't get that sort of narrow. But often what it means is that you can do those pieces within the context of another class. But I don't know, Lisa, what do you think?
I mean, I only have the student perspective, right? I don't know what the conversations are. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one at Berkeley that doesn't want to save the world, and like I just want to write about clothes. So I can attest that there is a place for you if you are interested in non-technical or even what other people might consider non-serious topics. Again, Berkeley is what you make of it, and so I was very much in this arts and culture realm, and Lisa Armstrong, who writes about incarcerated populations and criminal justice, has been my editor on like pieces that are very much not about that in any realm of stretch of the imagination. In Jen's profiles class, I'm writing a personal essay on loneliness. It's really like you learn so much about the craft that you can, whatever type of writer or subject that you want to explore, like people can help you. And then I also think you'll meet in your classes like different guests, speakers. Like last week in your class, Carvel Wallace, he started as a music right? Yeah, Pitchfork. Yeah. So you meet other people who have other subject matter expertise or have focused on a different area. So
I think you also.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think you also bring up a good point, which is that I think people graduate with this idea, the skill set, right, to then apply to whatever like industry or like, for example, people that maybe want to, do journalism in another language, or right. So it's because this is preparing you with skills that are so broad that they can apply to, again, different subject material. Or so I think that's something that I think a lot about when I think of where our alums are at now, is that there's such a range. There isn't one career path, and even probably you all can speak to, especially Jennifer, where alums end, go on to, where, not just maybe like you said, the New York Times or LA Times or wherever, is that there are so many other opportunities, and depending on what you end up, what kind of courses you're taking, and again, we, obviously there is, business journalism, there's, data reporting courses, but that can open up other doors too. So I guess the point is that with the concentrations, I guess I just want people to remind people that you don't need to come in so narrowly. I don't think this is a place where I feel like a lot of current students say, like, I learned so much about what I'm interested and passionate about just through that exposure. So I guess just something to think about is maybe keep an open mind, because you may be surprised by, what you discover. So again, you can obviously come in with intention. I think that's important. I think in the applications, our faculty really want people that are, passionate about journalism. This can be a hard industry. So, I think that passion is really important. But yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about, what if I don't know narrative, or, it might be a few things. And yeah, you'll have time to determine that for yourself. So anyways, yes, I want to leave you with that.
We have a couple questions out here.
Yes, yes.
Several, actually,
Okay,
but I don't know if we have stuff in the
sure.
chat.
Let's do that.
I'll try to talk faster.
Oh, there is a really quick question. Interested in travel writing, wondering if this is covered in the narrative writing program, just because we spoke about arts and culture. And yeah, and are there other ways to test other media in this program? So.
Well, so definitely lots of ways to experiment with other media, as Lisa was saying. Like, you can just take whatever, even if you're in the narrative track, you can take audio, you can take all kinds of stuff. The only one that's a little tracky is documentary film. Like, then you really have to start, like, semester one, I think, knowing that you want to do that. And then travel writing, we actually don't do a ton with it. I've done some travel writing. It's something that I think it would be fine to do for a class here. It sort of depends. I mean, at the end of the day, I think travel writing it's its own kind of little specialty, where it ends up being often a little more personal essay, and so it's probably not like the sweet spot of the J School, but we do some of it, and I am going to just kind of keep it short so we can take the folks out in the.
Hi, I'm wondering, for internships for people who are in the narrative track, if you can describe what that looks like. I'm specifically thinking, like, I guess I imagine that if I were to go into audio, I would be like learning and developing further sort of basic audio skills in an internship, like working on production on pieces. And it's harder for me to imagine what internships look like when the goal is like long form narrative pieces. Do people actually get to work on stories like that, and in what capacity?
Yeah, good question. So one, because the narrative track is diverse, there are multiple answers, right? So some people work in the IRP, the investigative reporting program, over the summer, reporting stories. Some people go to newsrooms, right? Will intern at the LA Times or something like that. There are, in fact, magazine-style internships. I interned at Harper's when I went to the J School a million years ago. So it's possible to do that. We have also people who, like, after they graduate, become like fellows at Mother Jones and stuff like that. So the rule is that, when you're interning or being a fellow, it's not like they're kind of like, fantastic, why don't you write a piece for the New Yorker now? Or, it's like they're not going to do that. But what you do learn is you're on the inside at, what you want to do as a magazine, you're at the inside at a magazine. You often are doing stuff like getting to see a lot of raw copy, because maybe part of what you're doing is fact checking. And so you get to see, what did these famous writers file when they filed their first 6,000 word draft? How is this person editing it? How does this evolve over 10 drafts? When you sit in on pitch meetings, story meetings, right? And so it's like, they're just, you're going to see 30 pitches, and then you see the 3 that get assigned. Why do those get assigned, right? You get to see copy flow. So you get to learn all this stuff just by being there. And of course, you make great contacts by being there as well. So right after I finished my Harper's internship, you're not allowed to pitch while you're there. But the minute I left, I pitched them on a thing that became a 4-page piece in Harper's. So it's a short piece for Harper's, but it was a great publication. So at least that's my thing. I don't know if you want to add.
I don't know that my internship was that robust, but I did get to intern at a magazine, and I very, very specifically did not settle for anything that was not some sort of magazine style writing. It was a little bit harder to find, I'm not gonna lie. There's definitely there's not a ton of there are a lot of magazine fellowships I've recognized rather than magazine internships, but if no one has told you about Media Mayhem yet, I mean, I could talk for the whole time about Media Mayhem, but basically I made contacts there and was able to secure a magazine internship and have clips and I had a cover story that came out in November, so I did get to like live the dream for a little bit. It was a local publication, so you're more likely to get your start. I mean, I wasn't as good of a writer, so I didn't apply to places like Harper's. Maybe that would have been a thing, but I focused on local magazines, and even during the outreach of seeing if places had internships available, made contact with editors that I'm still in touch with today and got some freelance opportunities. So there's a lot. I know a couple other interns we did have. I think John did fact checking for NPR, if I'm right. Yeah. So we had some fact checkers. Some people did audience engagement just to learn the other side of the business. It kind of depends where newsrooms are at the moment as well.
And honestly, Lisa's right, which is when you actually think about like a summer internship, it's kind of a brutally short period of time, right? And so like a lot of these publications just like, oh my God, like you're going to take on someone who's like not great at what they do yet. And then you're trying to train them up and then they're like, see you later. So it's not, in a lot of things, especially like long form, those are harder to come by. And that's why like the Mother Jones Fellowship, like that's basically a year. So when you graduate, you can go into that, but it's not something you can do. So usually the strategy for like, the summer thing is just to go, a lot of people go to more traditional kind of news fellowships. But as Lisa was saying, it's possible to find, and it's more likely you'll find, it might be the East Bay Express, it might be like, a local publication like Bay Nature, so yeah. You had a question a while ago.
Hello. Thanks for being here. So my question is kind of what does the first year look like? Talking to some students, they're saying it's a very busy year, which reminds me of like 1L. So I'm like, oh my gosh, is this like law school? Did I go the opposite of what I was running away from? And also, how common is it for folks to work while they're in school?
All right, I'll start, but I think Lisa probably knows more because she's closer to it at this point. So there is this kind of mandatory thing, J200, right, which is like a news reporting first semester. And that's often like pretty, like you're reporting and writing news stories, right? So it's more deadline driven. It's hustling. You guys are psyched because you just missed election year, which is like, it's like you're working till midnight on whatever. So, but that's a bit of a hustle. I think the spring semester, it's more that people are so psyched. They're out of J200 and this is their time to like choose. They can choose from all these, like this fabulous buffet of classes. And so people tend to like be like, I'm signing up for 5 things and then just get a little like, So I don't think it's like that the full first year has to be exhausting. I think it's almost more just like a psychedness in the second semester. And in terms of work, I TA'd when I was here. I was at GSI 20 hours a week or whatever. So, because I needed my like money back on my tuition and stuff like that. I think that's very common. We have a lot of people who GSI. We've also had people who work outside, not in the university, and that seems to be totally fine too. It really kind of, depends. I think it'd be tough to do something closer to obviously a full-time job. And even if you have a real hardcore part-time job that's not very flexible outside of school, then it can be kind of tough if you just have to be like, especially if it's like not here, if you have to like be in San Francisco, from these hours, it's going to be hard to take your classes and have time to report. But otherwise, yeah. How about, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it doesn't have to be the full first year that is intense. I think the first semester is pretty intense, and it's J200. And it might depend also on your level of reporting experience. Some people who have never been reporters, it's incredibly overwhelming to be thrown into it. So if you have some background, that might be a little more manageable. I think I've worked as a freelancer throughout the entirety of J school at various levels. I also commute from San Francisco, so it's doable, and your schedule becomes. You have more freedom to build your schedule as after that first semester, because it really is like all these mandatory classes, and then it's like, okay, now what are you gonna do? Where do you want to focus on? Like this semester in particular, I purposely did a lighter workload so I could pick up some more freelance work.
And also, I'll just say that sometimes you can even arrange it so you only have classes on like Tuesday and Thursday or something like that. So if you really have something where you need to be off campus for another job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I realize it's 1:49, so I want to make sure we wrap up. But just to add about work and balancing work and study. There are opportunities to work as to do work study, ASC they're called, academic student employment. It's up on the website. So I just revamped our website for the cost and funding page to be a little more friendly to you all. But it's very clear there, kind of how you can consider those opportunities too. And I know even first year students that were able to get GSIs, which are graduate student instructor, like a TA position in their first semester, and that offers tuition fee remission as well as a bit of a stipend. So yeah, there are definitely opportunities if you apply early enough, and you are persistent and on top of things. So yes, there are plenty of opportunities across campus. Those aren't just J school opportunities. There are other types of opportunities. Again, it's all on the website, on the cost and funding page, fellowships. So other departmental type, both merit and need-based opportunities too. So I would look into that, as well as just UC Berkeley has lots of opportunities, fellowships, grants, as well. So yeah, I would look into all of that and make sure you start planning that as soon as possible. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, Jennifer and Lisa. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.